Have you ever had to teach a demo lesson during an interview? Maybe you're going into your first rounds of interviews ever and you didn't know that demo lessons were even a thing. Let's talk about what you can do to be prepared to teach a demo lesson during an interview and tips for what your lesson should include and highlight. Hi and welcome back to my channel. My name is Ashley, aka Señorita Spanish, and we have been talking about how to get ready for an interview. Interview questions to prepare for, questions that you can ask during an interview, things to watch out for during an interview, and now finally, we are going to be talking about your demo lesson. This isn't something that will happen during every single interview. I've only had to do one, I think, twice ever, and I've had a lot more interviews than that, so it might not come up at all, but if you are asked to do one, or you might not even be asked to do one, you might be in the middle of your interview and they're like, okay, teach us something. And you're like, so this is one part of being prepared for an interview that you just really want to keep in mind. So I asked people on Facebook, on Instagram, on TikTok for recommendations and tips for things to help you prepare for a demo lesson. And I compiled them all together into 3 categories: prepping for your specific situation or that specific situation, prepping for things to go smoothly, and the lesson itself. All right, so let's dig right into it. If you haven't yet, don't forget to like this video, click subscribe, and ring that bell so you get notified of all new content I create for you in the future. Thanks. So we're going to start with prepping for the specific situation. You probably learned in college or in your teacher program or your education program, every situation and every group of students is different, and you want to make sure that you are tailoring your lesson to that specific set of students, that specific situation, the materials you have available, all of that sort of stuff. So let's talk about how to prepare for the specific situation you'll be in for this demo lesson. Ask what students have already mastered. Ask what they are working on right now, and ask what they are struggling with, and then tailor your lesson to that specific setup. If you can, and they might not be willing to share this information, and then it is what it is. If you can, you might want to ask if any students have any IEPs or 504s, things that you need to modify your lessons for or make accommodations for as you're planning ahead. If you have any insight into district initiatives, make sure you consider those initiatives as you're planning the lesson, because if you can tailor what you are doing to that specific district and the things that they are specifically working on, they might appreciate seeing your strength and expertise in those areas that they are trying to grow in. Now we're going to talk about how you can plan for things to go smoothly. These are kind of all the little nitpicky things, the little details, plan for the worst, that kind of deal. So how can you plan for the worst and prepare for the best when you're talking about a demo lesson? First, it's a good idea to bring something to make name tags for the students, even just cardstock or little index cards to have them fold and make like little tents. That way you can address the students by name. Make sure at the beginning of the lesson you introduce yourself and they know what to call you. Maybe write your name on the board or something like that, just so that you can start that very basic relationship that you want to have in any classroom.
What do your students call you? Profe, Senora, Senorita, something else entirely? Comment below and let me know.
If you plan to incorporate technology in your lesson, make sure that you have thought through the district sharing permissions, that you've checked any district restrictions, any of that sort of stuff, because you never know what the district is going to block and allow, and it would stink if you planned your entire lesson around this site and they don't even allow access to it. So make sure A, you check ahead, B, you've made sure you've checked out sharing permissions so students can access anything that you might want to share with them, and C, you just have a backup plan because things happen, right? What if the Wi-Fi goes down? It's a good idea to email your presentation or email whatever visuals that you'll need to the interview board, and have flash drive and email it to yourself. All of the things, right? Cover all your bases, especially when technology is involved. You never know what's going to happen. So you want to make sure that you are as prepared as possible. Another really good thing to keep in mind is sometimes a demo lesson is something that they ask you to come back for and teach, but sometimes they just throw you on the spot mid-interview, right? So maybe your interview is going really well and they're like, okay, now we want to see you teach a lesson. So at least before you go into your interview, have some sort of idea in mind for what you could do as a demo lesson without any materials, without any technology, without anything, right? Just kind of have something in mind that you could do and just like pull out of your sleeve right on the spot, because you never know what they're going to ask. We talked about preparing for that specific situation. We talked about preparing for things to go smoothly. Let's talk about the lesson itself. Like, what do you need to include? What should you include? What should you avoid? All of that sort of stuff. Step number 1, if you have any presentations, any handouts, anything that you're going to be using and sharing, double and triple check for typos. While we're all human, having that happen during an interview is not a good look. So just make sure that you're really paying attention. You've double checked it. Maybe you had a friend double check it for errors, any of that sort of stuff. Give it another look before you go into the interview. Aim for an interactive lesson of some sort, right? You don't want it to be sit and get. You want to show that the students can be engaged and that they're going to be into it. So whatever you plan, make sure that there's some way for the students to participate. Kind of a no-brainer, right? Along those same lines, try and show a variety of activities. Like maybe you're going to include some sort of kinesthetic or some big movement-based activities. Maybe you're planning for individual, partner, and whole class activities, but show a variety of activities so that way they can see kind of the scope of what you're capable of in a classroom, even if it's just a short amount of time. I'd also recommend that you have a sponge or a fast finisher activity ready, just because it can be hard to judge how fast something will go, especially when you've never met the kids before, right? When you've never met the students and you're not 100% sure what their capabilities are, it's nice to have one or two things planned that it's like, okay, we can move on to this, or like, okay, we can skip that because we're running out on time. So make sure that as you're planning your lesson, you have it kind of chunked into segments that would be easy to either add in if you need to fill more time, or just move right past if you are running out of time. And the last tip that I have to share with you is right, this isn't always possible, but if you have a chance to do a lesson that you have done before, that's always a great idea, because that means that you've had experience teaching that lesson. You know how it's gone once, right? We all know that sometimes the first time you teach a lesson, it's like, that didn't quite go as I pictured it. You really don't want that first time like hiccup to go through during a demo lesson or during an interview. So you really want to make sure that if you can, either do a lesson that you've taught before or practice it with your roommates, or drag your family members out to the couch and make everybody sit and do this lesson with you, but at least run through it so that way you have had a chance to like work out any hiccups that might occur. All right, those are all the tips that we have for you for demo lessons. I hope they were helpful for you. If you haven't yet, make sure you check out the other videos in our interview prep series. Interview questions for you to ask, interview questions to be prepared to ask, and interview flags to look out for, because there's some schools you just don't want to work for. As always, if you have any questions, drop them in the comment section below this video. I want to hear what you have to say. If you like this video, make sure to give it a thumbs up. And if you haven't yet, don't forget to click subscribe and ring that bell so you get notified of all new content I create for you in the future. Thanks!